So welcome everybody to our webinar this morning, titled Integrating Systems and Bringing Visibility to Manufacturing Data. Again, I really appreciate everybody taking time to join us today. So we'll just kind of go through our meeting agenda and kind of just talking about housekeeping and expectations of the webinar and kind of how it flows. We'll go through a little bit of introductions about our companies and the speakers this morning. Our first part of the webinar, we'll be talking about, kind of going through and understanding a technology assessment, kind of getting a good sense of how do you understand the overall systems that you have today, kind of going through that process, really kind of understanding where you may be today and kind of, helping you understand how to get where you want to be, and kind of going through that process and really kind of, laying out some immediate actionable steps that you can take right away with you and your team to kind of begin to move forward in that process. Then following that, we're going to get into going through and helping you understand Power BI within the Microsoft Power Platform and also Microsoft Fabric, which is sort of the new leading tool set that's kind of leading the way from a Microsoft Power Platform perspective. And then we're going to be going into a Power BI demo to kind of help you understand how to really leverage Power BI from the standpoint of bringing in a wide range of data from disparate systems and really kind of building out highly interactive and visible reports and dashboards for you and your team. And then at the end, we are going to have a Q&A. So we do have a Q&A section in our Teams format today, and you're welcome to enter in any question that you have or comments, and we'll certainly address those at the end during the Q&A session. And just to let you know as well, the webinar is being recorded, and we will make sure everyone has a recording link that is shared to everyone following this meeting, so you can follow up with any additional information at your convenience. Just a little bit about us. We are part of a larger conglomerate out of Cincinnati called Revision Collective. We're an employee-owned collective, so we are what they call an ESOP, which is an employee-owned company, and we're also proudly a B Corp entity as well. The conglomerate kind of comprises of three technology companies, two of them which we'll be presenting today. Engage is a technology services firm out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Matt Darple from Engage will be presenting today. And 5-Star is a custom software development company here in Pittsburgh. And SimpleSoft is an Infor CRM implementation firm out of Dayton, Ohio. And you can get some more information about our conglomerate and all of our companies at revision.com. I just kind of introduce our speakers today. Matt Darple, our strategic advisor from Engage, will be doing the first part of the webinar, kind of going through the idea of the strategic assessment, really kind of getting understanding of all the different type of systems that you have and sort of where to take it from there. And then Corey Seaman and Connor Jordan from 5-Star will be going into introducing Power BI and Fabric, overview of those two systems, and also going into the Power BI demo. And they will also be available at the end for Q&A session as well. All right, so with that, I'll toss it over to you, Matt, if you want to go ahead and get started with your part of the presentation, and then we'll continue to move through it and get into the Power BI as well. So Matt, go ahead, please.
Great, thanks, Doug. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Darple. As Doug said, I'm a strategic advisor with Engage Partners. And my background is I started as a developer, and then I worked in the financial services industry for 24 years supporting an Oracle manufacturing implementation that supported a very high volume literature fulfillment operation. And so I have a pretty extensive background with manufacturing, the manufacturing environment, the applications associated with it, and dealing with the day-to-day pressures of a manufacturing setting and the IT that supports it. I'm now a strategic advisor with Engage, and so I typically deal with conducting IT assessments and strategy work for clients. So this morning, we want to set up this conversation by talking a little bit about what kinds of challenges you might be facing in the manufacturing industry. Here on the slide really just meant to be a representation of kind of the more common relationships and systems that might exist in a manufacturing ERP system. So maybe in your case, you've started with a small set of individual applications and you're integrating those. A lot of this depends on the size of your company, right? Where you started, how you've evolved, how mature you are, and where you are, in that journey. Typically, organizations these days are purchasing an ERP system of some sort. Those could be the giant systems like Oracle Manufacturing, or intermediate range systems that could be extended to large enterprise environments, other versions of Oracle, JD Edwards, Infor, or Microsoft Dynamics. There are many, many offerings in the space. You might have several of them. You might have many instances of them. So all of that can get really complicated really quickly when you have to integrate all of these things together, not only the core ERP systems, but the manufacturing execution systems, the programmable logic controllers, the Internet of Things that is now becoming prevalent with Industry 4.0. So all of these things generate a huge amount of data, and are only really efficient if you have integrated them correctly, which can be a huge challenge as your systems evolve and grow. You have many legacy systems out there. So the diagram that's shown here on the screen gets very, very complicated very, very quickly. So you might have disparate systems, a large number of disparate systems that don't share data. And so you can see on the slide, there are multiple data stores, right? Even in the cloud, even the IoT devices have their own data storage. You might have disconnected departmental solutions where you have a mix of homegrown things or legacy things. That's just that critical thing that one guy built that nobody knows what to do with, that's sitting back in a corner. But if it goes down, everything stops on the shop floor. And so those departmental solutions can have their own data and their own integrations. I always like to say that things typically will grow organically or haphazardly. So you might have manual integrations where you're literally taking data manually from one system and plugging it into another. And there's a critical couple of people who do that. Those things grow and evolve over time. They seem to have their own life. That's why I like to refer to them as organic growth, organic development. Which can be good and can be bad, but it tends to lead to a lot of inefficiency. All of this creates data sprawl, right? You have data in multiple locations. You can't necessarily get to it easily. You want to share it across these different systems, especially gathering all that data up into your ERP system that might be the core of your system that you want to make sure is visible at the decision-making level. And it's extremely difficult to do when you have this manual data movement. You have little ability to interrogate the data stores in each of these places. Some of them have their own languages, especially as we get into Industry 4.0 tools, where the Internet of Things and Industry 4.0 creates data proliferation, right? There's just a huge amount of data out there that's coming off all of these devices on the shop floor. And so it can create a lot of confusion about exactly what you should be capturing, what to pay attention to. There's probably way more there than you know what to do with in a lot of cases, and it's only going to get more and more common and more data points. So what do you do about this? First of all, you're going to feel very frustrated. These data silos obviously create inefficient production processes. Like I said, sometimes you literally might have people moving data manually from one place to another, creating a report and then re-entering it in another place. You have the inability to integrate data across business processes. So you have multiple processes in each of these applications, and it becomes extremely difficult or expensive to move the data all the way from one end of the process to the other, or at the critical step in the process. So you have those disparate systems, you have data silos where all of that exists. And so this results, or can result also, in data integrity issues. And Doug, you can start to build that list on the side. Data integrity issues might include duplicates, inaccurate data, inconsistency in the data, and all of that is going to create the inability to scale and maybe more importantly, create confusion on the shop floor, create inefficiencies in your process, and potentially affect your ability to service your customers, right? If you can't tell your customers where their order is because you have conflicting data, or you don't understand what your internal cycle time is, or your build costs are, that creates problems in your overall solution, and for your business. The fact is that there's just too much data to deal with today. A recent Forbes article made the assertion that there are few industries in which the impact of big data is more evident than in the industrial and manufacturing sector. In fact, manufacturers expect data volumes to increase more than any other industry in the next decade. So it's critical that we get a handle on this data, that you understand where it is. This also can create security concerns. Obviously, with all that manual data movement, there could be problems. There are lots of places that potential saboteurs could attack with the Internet of Things and more things moving through the cloud. Another reason that it's really important to understand how all this data is moving. And then finally, there are a lot of missed opportunities for insights. If we're not harnessing this data, if we don't understand how it flows, then we're missing the ability to interrogate it in ways that can really give us insights, the kinds of insights that AI are proposing to provide. You might see some of that. We don't want to talk about AI necessarily in this presentation directly. That discipline is still maturing, but clearly it's a trend that's going to potentially transform the way that we work. And you want to be ready to interrogate the data that you do have with these newer tools. So with that, where do we go from here? The first thing that I would recommend is that you take a step back if you can, and you have not already done so, to perform an overall assessment. There are a couple of ways that this occurs in the manufacturing industry. In general IT, obviously, we can do an IT assessment overall, and I'll talk about that in a second. But one thing that is out there is the Smart Industry Readiness Index. If you're looking for a way to kind of take an objective step back and use a tool or a methodology to assess where you are, this SIRI process from the Smart Industry Readiness Index is an approach that helps manufacturing businesses specifically evaluate their readiness for digital transformation. I hate using buzzwords. I feel like digital transformation is a buzzword, but it is, looking at your entire IT infrastructure and understanding how to best utilize the tools and techniques that are out there to give you the best solution. But this process has 4 key steps: learning the concepts and building a common language for alignment about your Internet of Things or your Industry 4.0 devices that exist in your IT infrastructure, evaluating the state of existing facilities and the company's readiness for Industry 4.0, architecting a comprehensive transformation strategy and implementation roadmap, and delivering impact and sustaining transformation initiatives. And so this SIRI process, and there are a lot of companies out there that will come in and do this for you. It's a relatively low-cost way to kind of look at how you accomplish where you are in that maturity and readiness to adopt Industry 4.0 practices, and maybe how you're doing using them today, because you probably already have to some degree. So I think one other thing that you can do as a result of that, coming out of that, is focusing on this architecting a comprehensive transformation strategy, is looking at an overall IT assessment. And that's really what's shown here. The elements of an IT assessment include a current state analysis, identifying your future vision, and creating a roadmap to meet that vision. In between there, you identify gaps and risks, you build initiatives, and you build a roadmap to accomplish those initiatives over time. And so if that isn't something that you already did in the big picture, you want to be heading towards doing that, or be doing that as part of your strategic planning process. But with that, obviously, the first step is current state analysis. So today, I'm hoping that along with the SIRI, the idea of the SIRI evaluation or assessment, here are a few immediately actionable steps that you can take away from our discussion today to get you started on this, if you haven't already done some of these. maybe you probably have to some degree done some of these. We would encourage you to go back and kind of revisit each of these and update this information or create this information, because all of this would be used in an assessment and in moving forward with a new roadmap or an updated roadmap on your IT strategy. First is identifying your IT. From the financial services industry, what we would say often is know what you own and why you own it. That's true from an investment perspective, and it's true from an IT perspective. You need to know what you own so that you can understand why it's used, and hopefully, if it's not necessary, eliminate it. So you want to build an inventory of your applications and databases. Use tools like Excel if you need to. ServiceNow is a good tool for asset management to track and identify your assets. So it sounds really simple, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do this or let it get out of date. You need to have that inventory for reference and to help you build that roadmap. Next, I would say visualize it, create an application context diagram that identifies your assets and the relationships, illustrates major applications, all those data stores that are out there, including the IoT devices and what they're providing, where they exist and what the integrations are. Again, I know it seems simple, but it's one of those things like eating your vegetables. We all love to say that we do it, but we don't always do it as often as we should. So I would say, take the time to take a step back and draw that diagram and use it constantly to help you understand what's happening in your environment. Next, classify it. Catalog your data sources and warehouses, your data lakes, your data feeds, whatever it is that exists in your environment. Assess the quality and determine the audience of each data type. So this is creating the data about your data, right? The metadata along with it. Understanding what's truly there, understanding what you could mine from each data source. This will obviously help you understand where those duplicates exist. Finally, connect it to your important business metrics, right? This is where the insights can come from. There are business metrics that are used to run your business at every level of the operation. How does the data that you're collecting relate to those business objectives, that key process? You need to know what those key metrics are at each step in the process and what it means to roll it up and what data to harvest in order to support decision making, the best decision making. So hopefully, you can take some time to understand the relationship between those two, those business metrics, your data, and connect the two. So just taking these steps hopefully will help you to build some foundation. It will certainly help you to understand your current state. But in order to do all of that, obviously you might need some help. You might need some tools. And that's where the 5-star guys can come in with the Power BI tools and capabilities. They're going to talk about some of the ways that you can look at all of the reporting data in your environment, some of the tools that you might use in order to collect this data, analyze the data, and make best use of all of that great information that you just collected in the current, the 4 steps that I just mentioned. So with that, I'm going to stop and transition back over to, I believe Corey is next, who will talk a little bit about the ways that you might be able to accomplish some of this.
Thank you, Matt. Hey, everybody. My name is Corey Seaman. I oversee our development team at 5-star. I am an avid technologist who spends a lot of time architecting solutions and working with our clients to help them meet their needs, often with custom applications or cloud services like we'll talk about next. And as Doug mentioned, our other presenter today is CJ, and I'll let him introduce himself in a couple of minutes. So to pick up where Matt left off, once you've done an assessment and have your metadata and the current state of your data in hand, like he talked about, what is next? Today, I think we're going to spend a little bit of time first giving you a glimpse of Microsoft Fabric, a brand new data management and analytics platform that was introduced mid-2023. And importantly, that's where you'll find Power BI online, which we're going to talk about quite a bit as well. So I like to tell people that in the same way that Microsoft lowered the barrier to entry for business intelligence and reporting with Power BI about 10 years ago, they're trying to do the same with Fabric in the wider realm of enterprise data management and analytics. And so far, it seems like they're doing a pretty good job with that. In a nutshell, Power BI has been made something of a centerpiece product in Microsoft Fabric, but Fabric itself is a broader ecosystem that enables a lot more than just data visualization. It helps businesses manage and analyze data end to end, and Power BI is the primary tool for providing reporting and key insights within that data ecosystem. They're both deeply integrated now and have been made so over the last year or two. And they have very tightly coupled functionality and interfaces, but it's important to note that you can absolutely use only Power BI if it's all you need. Fabric adds things like centralized data storage, and you can see in the diagram here, security and governance. It unifies this experience, and it's a new way to store some of the semantic models that are used within Power BI's analysis and reporting. We'll get into those in a bit. But it adds a full suite of data science tooling for statistical analysis and predictive analytics and a bunch of other things that we'll touch on. And again, because of the time we have available, we'll be moving at a pretty fast pace. We'll kind of start with a tour and cover some 10,000-foot concepts and features, which is important because even if you have been in Power BI or used it at all, there are some new things to get used to. And of course, we'll be doing some real world demoing in Power BI as well. So as we go through this, our goal is to help you envision how you might be able to leverage some of the tools and integrate those disparate systems and data sources that you deal with on a daily basis. So thinking about the Fabric portal and Power BI Online, also you may hear it called the Power BI service. Before we go there, it's important to call out up front that Power BI Desktop is a free tool. It's a downloadable application you can install. And if your org only has one or two people that are building and sharing reports, you might start there with a local network share and create your reports, and that may be a perfect solution. We'll dig into that application and look at how we can build reports there. But the Power BI Online service is accessed through your Microsoft 365 corporate account. It provides you with access to workspaces, and a default workspace is your personal workspace. That also is free. You can create and publish reports there. They're for your eyes only. And if you want to work as a team, then the collaborative workspaces are what requires licensing. So we'll touch briefly on the Power BI licensing. We're not going to go into all these options, but the main models are the Pro model, which is per user. It's good for smaller teams. There's also a premium model. You can purchase premium capacity. That's purchased per organization. It's good for larger companies or those that have bigger reporting audiences. And the nice thing about that is it removes some of the per person limits that you have with the Pro model. Fabric is also purchased per organization as well in the form of a tiered capacity, which basically supplants the Power BI Premium license as it includes all of the Power BI features. And there are options for purchasing in advance reserved instances as well to save some money. Obviously, there's a few things that are simple when it comes to licensing. So if you have follow-up questions about your specific scenario, we can help you answer those. Okay, let's jump over and take a look at the Power BI and Fabric interface. The first thing you have over here is a left side nav. This has links to all of the different functional areas. And over here, you also have a shortcut to workspaces. From this, you can select your workspace, and it also gives you below that the current workspace that you have selected. Below that is a working section that will show open reports and other items that you have worked on. You can also close those at any time. Then there's a main panel in the center, and it has two primary views. This list view that you're looking at right now, which just shows all the items that are in your workspace, or this is an interesting new one that they have is called a lineage view. And this shows how the items that are in your workspace are all related. This is kind of a sneak peek at what we're going to be demoing in a bit. But all the way down to the data source level here, you can see where your data lives. We have some text files, we have some Excel sheets, we have some We have an access database here, and this all rolls up into a semantic model, which then is utilized by a report, and maybe more than one report as well, but you can see all those relationships in here, and there's some others in here showing as well. Then when we look at the key entities in our Power BI workspace, one of the first ones it's important to look at is also a fairly new feature. We have deployment pipelines. These deployment pipelines are kind of a workflow for developing and staging content between workspaces. So, if you have a large organization that has a lot of reports or a lot of data related items to manage, or many people in the process of creating your reports, what you can do is you can actually assign workspaces to each of these stages in your process, and you can deploy reports, warehouses, jobs, dashboards, things, any of the entities that can be managed can be transitioned in between them. So if you want to develop something and then have it in review and then move to production, there's now a tool for being able to make that happen. And then the next is apps. We're not going to go into this in great detail, but you can think of apps as a way to package up reports for specific audiences. Maybe you have a project team that has internal and external users that don't all have access to the workspace. You can go in and provide a name, information, logo, etc. for this app, and then you can set up content. That content can be reports, it could be web URLs, anything else that's relevant to whomever this is intended for, and then you set the audience. You can select your users, and once that's published, then everybody that is in that audience will have direct access to the things that you've shared through the app. Then next we have all the things you can add through this create new. Everything that's gold colored at the top is related to Power BI most specifically. So reports, paginated reports, scorecards, dashboards. Actually, semantic models are also pretty directly related to Power BI reports. The rest, and if you click on this, which I won't go into now, there's a huge list of all the other things that are either related to Power Platform or Fabric directly. But among these things, obviously, reports are some of the bread and butter here. You can click on, you can add and edit reports. You'll see when we select to edit, this is going to be very similar to the interface that we're going to see for the Power BI desktop tool, which is very intentional, obviously. But from here, you can download and then edit and publish in Power BI desktop. If you'd like to do that, we're going to be looking at the editing part there in more detail in a few minutes. One of the other primary things here is a dashboard. And you can create and edit your dashboards here. They've changed a little bit from what they used to be prior to the advent of Fabric. They're now more focused on streaming data. You'll see if you add a tile, you can add a number of tiles to a dashboard. There are options for adding web content, images, and things. You can't add report data here anymore, but you can add real-time data streams, which is really, again, more the intent of a dashboard nowadays. The next option to add here are scorecards. Scorecards are a collection of custom goals. You can, let's take a look at the one that I already put together. You can set up these goals to track individual metrics over time. You can set up a static goal and a dynamic data source that provides data to let you know where you are tracking against that goal. You can look at trends, you can set due dates, name them however you like. These can connect into existing reports and semantic models. You can click to jump over to a report that's relevant. And you can also, once you get a bunch of these, it's handy to be able to filter by these options at the top of the screen, and you can choose those in order to see subsets of the scorecard. You can also, through the metrics link over here, you can see a nice card view of all of your scorecards as well. Then we have semantic models. Semantic models used to be known as data sets. They are completely reusable. They store multiple connections. They cache data as well as calculations and measures that are used to kind of aggregate and transform your data. They were renamed from data sets to semantic models to reflect that broader role, since they're more than just kind of a simple collection of data. But you'll see how they're used and how they can be used in multiple reports and things. And then lastly, in terms of the online interface, one of the new tools that comes from the Fabric side of things is a task flow. This is really more of a productivity tool. You can pick a pre-designed template or you can customize your own. This is more applicable again to orgs that are using Fabric to do more than just self-service reporting, but it helps you understand how items are related and work together in your workspace, and it makes it a lot easier for you to navigate your workspace, especially as the number of items grows in here. So this one that's selected is a basic machine learning model, but you can add all sorts of different tasks, and then you can assign the individual items in here to each of these different tasks, and when you select them, it will just kind of filter things down. So to be able to visualize this and perhaps have different folks in different roles be responsible for these different items, it's just a great tool to be able to help you organize your workspaces that way. Okay, so as with the web app, we're going to take a brief look over at the Power BI desktop tool. And then CJ is going to take us through a demo to show us how we might apply Power BI in a manufacturing setting. So in Power BI itself, you will see a pretty familiar scene for those of you that are used to Microsoft 365 applications like Word and Excel. There's a ribbon bar up at the top, and initially here on the home screen, the home tab for this ribbon, you'll see that you can get your data and you can transform your data. Those are two of the biggest things that you can do here, and we'll take a closer look at those. You can also insert visuals. This is the place where you have your Power Platform integrations, where you can insert Power App and Power Automate connections, as well as other visual elements. Under modeling, you can look at managing relationships. You can add measures. And then under view are some more of the aesthetic types of tools where you can set your theme, things like that. So back here at home, when you click on Get Data, you can get your data from databases, from many of the places that Matt had called out up front. Some of, whether they're files that are local or cloud-based, services, cloud APIs, ERPs, CRMs, services like QuickBooks, whatever. Pretty much everything. These are the most common sources, but when you click more, you can see that there are dozens, maybe hundreds. You can select them by category or search for them if you want. If we take a look at just a SQL Server database as a starting point, the first thing you'll do is enter the credentials and any kind of connection information here, but the most important thing is the data connectivity mode. In import mode, which is the default, data is, as you would expect, imported from databases, files, etc., and it's cached in the Power BI file. This is the recommended way of pulling your data in because it allows for the best use of Power BI Desktop's high-performance query engine. Import mode data can be refreshed at any time on demand, and when this report gets pushed to the cloud, if you so desire, scheduled refreshes are completely configurable. And some types of data sources like files that might live in SharePoint or OneDrive, those are automatically refreshed on an hourly basis. Now, accessing data where it lives through a connection is called direct query. And it sounds like it might be the preferable mode since it accesses your data directly, but it's often not recommended since it's dependent on connection quality. It involves a lot more of a chatty kind of back and forth connectivity to your sources. There's plenty of blog articles that are out there about what connection type might fit your needs, but usually import is what's recommended. Also, many-to-many relationships are now supported in Power BI. They haven't always been, as well as multiple direct query connections in the same model. And if that's something you need, that is now there. If you switch over to table mode, this is where you view your tabular data. You can edit measures and calculated columns, formulas with DAX, which is data analysis expressions. If you've ever used Power Pivot in Excel, you've probably used DAX. It's useful for time intelligence, looking at like year-over-year calculations, doing budget versus actual comparisons, figuring out ROI, other kind of non-trivial aggregations of your data. If we click at total units sold here, you can see this is what a calculation in DAX looks like. This is summing our units sold of our sales data, and this is just a special function that keeps all of the filters removed from this calculation if we are clicking through our report and adding filters to it. We can look over at the model view. The model view is where we look at the relationships between our tabular data, or the schema of that. You can hover over these and you can see the relationships between the individual tables. And when you click on these, you can edit the actual relationship. And again, it highlights what column or columns these tables are related on. And you can see over here that it shows the nature of the relationship, the cardinality, such that a product category can have many products, but a product has only one product category. But these can all be edited here in a very intuitive way. And then lastly, the main report view is kind of the primary work area where you're going to build and edit your reports directly. You can build your reports from scratch. You can build them from templates. If you're using Fabric, you can even start with a semantic model and have a report that's completely AI generated by Copilot. Like Matt said, we're not going to get into the AI aspects of things here today, but that is a pretty powerful feature. And even though we're not demoing that today, we can follow up and show you how that works if you're interested in that. But multiple pages per report are supported through the tabs that are shown at the bottom. All of the components, importantly, on a page are interactive and they are all interdependent. So that's all based on the underlying semantic model. If I click on individual items here, it will filter everything down inside of that report. And it'll apply these filters across all of the existing visuals that are there. And then all of the visualizations types that are in this panel are included by default, and you can import hundreds of others through the marketplace. Some are free, some are available for purchase, but there are options for just about every type of way you might want to visualize data. Okay, that's probably enough of the basics. At this point, I think we are going to turn it over to CJ, who's going to give you a demo of how to build a report with some of that data you might see on a daily basis.
All right, thank you very much, Corey. Hello, everyone. My name is Connor Jordan. I've worked as a software developer at 5-Star for the past 2.5 years, and during my tenure, have provided data analysis and report building services with Power BI to one of our major clients. And today, in my portion of the presentation, we will be demonstrating a workflow through Power BI, from adding a data source through creating a visual, and finally looking at some of the advanced visualization features Power BI has to offer. So thank you again to everyone for joining this morning, and let's go ahead and get started. First, let's take a look at the semantic model that Corey showed us briefly here on the screen. This is a model, and it's a representation of all the data sources and tables that we have integrated into Power BI. This is a small example data set that we've built to simulate manufacturing data, but Power BI can be used to scale to data sets much larger and more disparate than the example that we've created. The semantic model shown here covers many aspects of the manufacturing process, from the equipment on the factory floor to the products that reach your customers. The data from all of your disparate sources come together here in the model view. We can begin forming relationships between sources hosted in completely separate places, and navigating through this model allows us to understand how your different data points interact and impact each other. For example, we can analyze how inventory levels in different warehouses affect logistics and delivery time. Or we can look at how market trends influence sales data across your various regions. The semantic model provides a holistic view of your operations, enabling you to make connections that might not be immediately apparent. So one of the strengths of Power BI is its ability to create additional views of your data and break it down by base entities to make the data more digestible. So we can go and click New Layout down here to create a new view. And let's consider the maintenance logs table as an example. We can drag it from the data pane over here into the interface. And now we can see the data points that are stored inside the maintenance logs table. Now, initially, we can view this as a table in isolation, which gives us valuable information about maintenance activities over time. However, Power BI allows us to enrich this view by integrating related tables. And so we can click Add Related Tables here, and it shows us all of the tables that have a relationship with maintenance logs, such as equipment. And if we add all of the related tables of equipment, we can now view information about locations as well. By doing so, we create a more comprehensive view that shows not just when maintenance occurred, but on which equipment, in which location, and eventually later in our demo, by which technician. And creating different views of the data, as we just did within the model view of Power BI, can help you familiarize yourself with what in many businesses might be a very complex semantic model. Now let's enhance our model by adding a final data source, a table of technicians. Now, in our legacy maintenance log system, each maintenance record includes only a numeric identifier for each of our technicians in this integer field. And this identifier alone doesn't provide much context about the individuals performing the maintenance tasks. We know who they are by an identifier, but we lack deeper insights into things like their name, their qualifications, their experiences, and their roles within the company. Let's go ahead and add the final data source. Corey already showed us where to go. We click Get Data here at the top. And for the sake of this demo, we have our technician data stored in the Dataverse. Now, Microsoft Dataverse is a secure cloud-based data platform that enables you to store, manage, and integrate data used by business applications all across the Microsoft Power Platform products. We'll go ahead and click in here, and this interface looks very similar to what you might see with other database sources represented within this interface. And we'll go ahead and search for our technician table. There it is. It'll show us a preview. And then we can go ahead and click Transform Data to open Power Query. And first we'll choose Import as our connection setting. All right, so we're using Power Query to import this new table into our model. And Power Query is a powerful data transformation manipulation tool within Power BI that allows us to connect to various data sources, clean and transform data, and ensure consistency across our data set. This table contains a lot of data that might be confusing to report builders, but no worries, we can clean it up so that report users only see columns that we're interested in showing within our report. So we can choose to unselect everything, and these look like the columns that we want to use in our report. We can go click OK, and that looks a lot better. Here we can also verify that the data type of each field is correct. Technician name should be alphanumeric. Technician ID should be a numeric field, and start date should be a date field. So all of that looks good. And we can also go ahead and make sure that the field names are more readable to our report viewers. So we can change technician name, technician ID, and we'll call this level seniority to better represent the different seniority of our employees. And that looks good. And we can also change the name of the table that is displayed within the interface as well. All right, so everything's looking good. We can go ahead, we can look and make sure that any errors in our data are fixed. And one last thing I'll note is that this pane on the right-hand side shows all of the changes that we made in our Power Query session, and the steps are saved so that each time your data refreshes, Power Query will apply these transformations to your data, saving you time, and so that you can get to building your reports. So we'll click Close and Apply. And it's going ahead and it's adding our technician table to our model, and we can see it appearing over here in our data pane. With the technician table now part of our model, we'll return to our maintenance log model that we created earlier, and we'll establish a relationship between the two tables using a common key. So we'll go ahead, drag technicians to the interface, and we can drag the technician ID column from the technician table over to the maintenance log table. Power BI asks us now to confirm the relationship between the two tables. Power BI allows several different cardinalities within our relationship, including one-to-many, one-to-one, many-to-one, and many-to-many. In our case, one technician is associated with many maintenance logs, so we'll pick that. And everything looks good, so we can go ahead and click Save. This connection allows us to link each maintenance activity with a technician who performed it. And by integrating these disparate sources, we can gain deeper insights into our maintenance operations. For instance, we can analyze whether more experienced technicians are assigned to critical equipment or if certain technicians are handling an overwhelming number of maintenance tasks. This step highlights Power BI's ability to seamlessly connect different data sources, enabling complex and meaningful analysis. All right, let's bring all this together into a final visual for our report. So we'll head back over to the Report tab, and we'll create a report that highlights the types of maintenance performed by our technicians and break them down by the seniority level of each technician. All right, so we're here on our maintenance dashboard, and we'll use a stacked bar chart to display the data. So we just clicked the stacked bar chart visual. We'll format it within this content block at the top. And let's think about what type of data we want to show in this report. So I think we want to show the equipment type, and we can just drag that field to the y-axis, and that'll show our equipment type. And then on the x-axis, we want to show the count of the maintenance logs for each equipment type. So we can drag that here, and you can see that it's already formatted the visual appropriately over here. Next, we want to add the seniority level of each technicians into the mix. So we can drag the seniority field I suppose it's named skill level, to the legend. And then you can see that our data is broken down by junior, mid-level, and senior level engineers. This visual allows us to see at a glance which types of equipment requires the most maintenance and which technician levels are primarily responsible for the maintenance. Over a given time period, we can assess whether we're effectively distributing the workload among technicians and if we're properly assigning tasks based on expertise or seniority. And by analyzing this data, we can make informed decisions about staffing, training needs, and maintenance scheduling to optimize efficiency and reduce our downtime. One of the advantages that Power BI has over traditional tabular report building tools is the interconnectivity of the visuals in our report. For example, say we want to filter this visual. What we can do is edit the interactions between all of our different visuals. And to do that, we go to the Format tab after selecting our visuals, and then we can select on our visuals and edit the interactions between them. And we can choose whether we want to filter them or highlight. So we've selected this visual, we can filter here, and now we can begin filtering on all of our visuals and see the interactivity between each of them. Something's up with our Mac visual, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and move on. Now, when we exit this screen, you can see that we just filtered the visual. Next, let's go ahead and explore some of the AI-driven visuals that Power BI has to offer, which can automatically generate insights from our data for users so that you might be able to more quickly gain new insights that you may have not ever thought of before. First, we'll look at the Smart Narrative visual. This feature generates narrative summaries of key findings in your data, providing context and highlighting important trends or outliers. Let's apply it to this report. After creating the visuals that display maintenance activities, we can add a smart narrative. Not that one. We can add a smart narrative to our report. We'll drag it over here. We'll format it. And then we'll click Custom. All right, there we go. And by inserting the smart visual onto our page, Power BI analyzes the underlying data and visuals to generate descriptive text. Now, when you come to your report, you can go ahead and you can look at your key narratives to get a quick summary of all maintenance activities at your plant. So you can see it's just provided a text description of all of the visuals within your report. So it says press accounted for 36% of the downtime hours. So that's great. Next, we're going to demonstrate the decomposition tree visual. This tool allows us to break down complex data hierarchies to uncover detailed insights. So we'll go to our logistics analysis report, and you can see in this visual that we've started with the total number of shipments. Now we can break it down. It enables us to interactively explore how each factor contributes to the total shipments. We can identify, for example, which warehouses rely most on air transportation. And then we can break it down even further and show which warehouses they came from. And then we can look and see how far each shipment went. And so this insight could lead to cost-saving measures or efficiency improvements in our logistic operations. All right, we'll look at just a couple more. Moving on to our sales analysis, we'll showcase how Power BI's Q&A feature and key influencers can provide quick and meaningful insights. On the left side of our report here, we have a visual that shows the highest revenue regions based on our sales data. On the right side, we'll use the Q&A feature. This allows us to ask natural language questions about our data, and Power BI will generate the appropriate visual automatically. You can see I've already imported a question: which 3 regions had highest revenue for online sales channels, sort by sum of revenue. And you can see that Power BI has processed the question and displayed a visual that answers it. Remarkably, the visuals match our custom visual that we created on the left. And this demonstrates how Power BI can generate accurate insights without the need for manually building custom visuals, making data analysis more accessible to everyone in the organization. We can enhance this and make it even more powerful by adding synonyms to our data model. This ensures that Power BI understands different terms or phrases that users might use when querying the data. For example, suppose our data model uses the term revenue, but users might also refer to revenue as sales or income. If we change revenue to income in our original question, you may or may not see results that look like what you intended. The system may or may not know that revenue is income. By adding synonyms in Power BI's Q&A setup, we enable the system to recognize and respond accurately to wider ranges of queries. So we can go into the synonyms pane here, and we can scroll down to our sales data, and it offers suggestions to us about different synonyms that we might apply. So here you can see for revenue, it's suggested profit, turnover, or yield. So you can just click plus, and it will add the synonym. And it says synonyms approved. All right. And our final visual is the key influencer. And we can use this to delve deeper into our sales data. On the left, we have a chart that shows the average revenue per sale across different product categories. And on the right, we set up the key influencer visual to analyze what influences revenue to increase. Power BI evaluates the data and identifies the product category chemicals as a significant influence on increasing revenue per sale. This insight suggests that chemical products yield higher revenues and might warrant more focus in marketing strategies or sales efforts. Here we chose to only analyze our data by category name, as you can see here. However, you may add more fields to the explain by field within our visual to begin thinking about your data from multiple different avenues. I think that's all that I have at this point. I'm going to pass the session back over to Corey to look at a few more things that Power BI has to offer. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, CJ. Yeah, you could definitely see how some of those AI-driven visuals could save you a lot of time. Okay, zooming back out a bit, as you think about how you might want to implement Power BI reporting, perhaps as a natural next step after your IT assessment, as Matt talked about earlier, you should ask yourself, what category do my reporting needs fall into? Are they, more personal BI, one employee to build them all, a library of spreadsheets or paginated reports in SSRS? Maybe you dabbled with Power BI Desktop before. Are they more like self-service? That's your goal. You want, you have citizen developers or data professionals who can build their own things as needed. Are you more enterprise level reporting and data management? You have kind of single curated source of truth that's centrally managed. Perhaps it's governed by some level of regulation or security. That's question one. Uh, Secondly, would you benefit from having your data in one central location, whether that's from databases, files, services, wherever, and use it for deeper statistical analysis, forecasting, real-time monitoring, transformation, exporting it to other partners? Usually there are a lot of layers to that onion, but asking this is going to help you discern your initial data management direction. So if you need more information on platforms like Fabric to answer that, then we're looking at a future webinar that's dedicated to that, where you can, reach out and chat or to one of our team members with your questions afterwards. But just as a brief snapshot, I know we're getting a little bit short on time here, so let me go back to this initial slide. Fabric's offerings beyond Power BI, just to touch on them briefly. OneLake is for creating data lakes and warehouses to store any data, including shortcuts that you might have to data that lives in other clouds like AWS or services that are beyond Azure. Data Factory is available for ETL for migrating and transforming your data. You can easily create pipelines to automate moving data back and forth. You have an endpoint that gives you the ability to query across all data in your data lakes via SQL. So if you have somebody who is a DBA or somebody who's familiar with SQL, you can query across all your data regardless of where it lives in files or otherwise. You can build notebooks and use data science and engineering tools through the Synapse suite, everything that's in blue here. For things like forecasting and deeper analysis. And then maybe even more relevant to you, real-time intelligence from IoT and sensor data, another thing that kind of Matt touched on earlier for monitoring and analysis of your mission critical operational data. And all of that obviously comes with easy integration with Power BI for your near real-time data visualization. So obviously the decision whether or not to utilize the entirety of Fabric is a complex one with a lot more factors to consider, but that's a deep dive for another day. So just to summarize real quick what we've had the chance to explore, we looked at the interdependencies between Fabric and Power BI, looked a little bit at licensing, looked at the Power BI portal, where you can create models, reports, scorecards, dashboards, manage your workspaces and access to them by your employees and others. There's a few productivity tools in there that are new and growing. There's going to be more soon. We also stepped into Power BI Desktop, looked at loading data, editing things, building reports with visualizations, especially those AI visualizations like decomposition trees and Q&A. So for next steps, I hope we've shown how accessible Power BI is and provided some food for thought regarding how your organization might start making use of it. As I said, Fabric is rolling out new features monthly. So if you look at their online roadmap, which I think we can provide you as a resource, they have major features coming in Q4 and next year as well. And it's evolving into a great one-stop shop for your enterprise data needs. So whether you'd like some starting report templates or look at the demo report we put together, some further training for your team, proof of concept to demonstrate value to the organization of tools like this, or just some answers to a big list of questions maybe after what you've seen, the whole Revision Collective team is happy to help you get started with that. So with that, I will hand it back to Doug.
Yeah, Corey, thank you so much, and thanks to Matt and Connor as well for providing some really insightful presentations and comments and some great input and insight in the presentation. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen to just to kind of wrap up on a couple of things. So just to kind of let you know, this is just a quick slide here to just to provide you with some of our contact information from the speakers. Certainly, if any of you have any questions that you want to follow up on, please let me know. But we do have a couple of questions I kind of want to get to, quickly. I know we're kind of running against a time clock, but one question, Matt, that kind of came up to you is, how long should company expect an assessment to take place, and what should be the type of expectations around timeline for that, and if they were putting together a team to kind of begin that process, who would you recommend to be a part of that team?
So an assessment, typically we say we start with the idea of it might be 4 to 6 weeks to start. It really just depends on the size of the organization and how they prefer to work, how much of the effort gets, included in the work that Engage would do. Typically, the size of the team or the participants from the team is a business SME. We might interview a number of business SMEs, but on the core team would be an IT sponsor and an IT leader who has access to all the resources that we might need in order to conduct that initial current state analysis. So if we have access to those folks, maybe a project manager, we can provide that, you can provide that. It really just depends on the organization and the level of maturity and complexity of their environment. What we want to do is meet folks where they are and then devise a plan that works for them.
Sounds good. Appreciate that. Thank you. And Corey and Connor, just a quick question for you as well. One question kind of came through. It's a little bit long, but I'll read it to you. It says, we have an old Access database that we're planning on migrating to a SQL Server soon. We want to use it for reporting. If we do upgrade it, how easy is it to swap from an old to a new data source with the same data after you've built a report?
It's a good question. Yeah, there's a couple ways of looking at it. If a data source is just moving, if it was really going to be mostly the same data source in a new location, that's super easy. That can be done really quickly by just in Power Query that Connor demonstrated. You can make changes there to the location, and really nothing downstream needs to change at all. If you are actually moving, your data to a new data source, that's a little bit more complicated, but really, again, you can utilize the same source inside of Power BI, and you just need to do a little bit of remapping in that Power Query area. And then again, everything there downstream should work the same. So yeah, it's don't let the fact that you might upgrade something stop you from using it in your reporting. That's a good question.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. Please, I think hopefully one of the takeaways that you learned today is that Power BI has a lot of flexibility to accept a wide range of data sources. So please don't let that sort of hinder your, process moving forward to, figure out the right way to move data into a reporting format. Well, listen, thank you so much for the time today. I know we're right at 11 o'clock. I want to wish everybody a wonderful weekend. Again, this meeting was recorded, so we're going to be forwarding the recording link to everyone. If you do have any additional questions, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to follow up with you and help you with your sort of strategic assessment on your systems, and also support you in any Power BI efforts and initiatives that you would like to move forward with your organization. With that, again, thank you so much for joining, and have a wonderful weekend, everybody.